So this are some of the experts. So obviously we had 10 experts in our white paper, but I managed to bribe, steal and borrow and get these three to kind of join us today. So you obviously have had intros from me and Nick, but should we start with Rasmus? Do you want to say hello and who you are?
Yeah, clearly. So my name is Rasmus Houlind. I'm Danish, as you might hear from my accent. I rode my bike here, obviously, as all good Copenhageners should be doing. I think I'm here with sort of two backgrounds. First of all, as a Danish market expert, but also as an expert within personalization. So I wrote a book actually with the gentleman over there, Matthias, around the topic of personalization. So how personalization and loyalty fits together, that would be my idiom.
That sounds good. And also naturally drawn, of course, to the pickled herring end of the chairs. Yeah. Rick?
Well, Rick Luttmer. I'm an independent loyalty consultant, strategist. I'm from the Netherlands, so I came by plane, but I ride bikes a lot. That's what we do in the Netherlands. And I'm here as an expert on loyalty and also do quite a lot of research. So I was happy to contribute.
Great. And Zsuzsa?
Hi, everyone. I'm Zsuzsa Kecsmar, one of the co-founders of Antavo. And that was a technology company for running loyalty programs, very innovative and beautiful loyalty programs like KFC or Scandic, which is known in the region, very soon CNA or Skims of Kim Kardashian. Very nice. And I'm here today as a Hungary expert. And I'm Hungarian and I live in Hungary, even though our company is a UK company of 100 people. But we don't have a Hungarian customer. So all of our customers are elsewhere globally, but I live in Hungary and I'm very much proficient in being a loyal customer to many brands.
And I am going to get all 24 markets. So if any of you are experts in loyalty, the markets not represented in the research, come talk to me, because over the course of the year, I want to add them all in. We managed to keep all our experts from last year as well, so I can promise you it's a fun and not arduous or horrifying process, because everybody stayed, which was really nice. So we'll get into questions. We pre-prepped some questions, because we've only got sort of 15 minutes, but if any of you have any questions, we'd much rather get kind of questions from you, but I'll run through these quickly. So controversially, the Danish and the Dutch markets were pretty pants for loyalty. And that's terrible as a researcher because you want everything to be brilliant. But I love a cautionary tale, as I said. So, Rick, why do you think the Dutch market has scored so low for loyalty?
Yeah, well, it's a question that kept me up at night, I must say. Because, well, I'm Dutch and, loyalty programs are all around in the Netherlands. So it was a surprise to me, but yeah, the data doesn't lie. So I had the honor of thinking about what could be a possible explanation for the skeptical sentiment of the Dutch respondents to in the survey. And I came across, while thinking about it, at three possible factors that combined may be a cause. And one is about wealth, the other one is about culture, and the third one has to do with e-commerce. And if I start with wealth, what I did in order to get a grasp more on the data is that I added GDP per capita to the data, and I looked at, what happens and what do I see? And the interesting thing that I saw is that if we look at the 10 most wealthy countries in the pool of the 24. If we look at those 10 countries and we look at the 10 countries that are most skeptical on loyalty programs, 8 of the 10 most wealthiest countries are in the top 10 of most skeptical countries. So I don't know if there's a mediating factor or something, but there is some kind of connection. And what that connection could be, and by the way, the Netherlands, not personally, but we're the 4th wealthiest country in Europe. So probably we're in that. We're definitely in that list. And what could be an explanation for that wealth, if you ask me? But it's arbitrary. Those wealthy countries have very mature economies, obviously. So loyalty programs have been around for decades. People are accustomed to it, have high expectations, and are also, let's say, more selective when it comes to participating. And so on. Yeah. So it's definitely the case for the Netherlands. So people are becoming less patient on those classical loyalty programs with delayed rewards and ongoing points and stuff. So that's one possible explanation or one factor to take into account. Second factor, culture. If we look at the countries that are most enthusiastic in the research about loyalty programs, those are all countries which have a certain, what I call, a masculine culture. Masculine cultures are prominently about achievement, rewards, status, like guys are. And there's countries like France and Spain, and a lot of Eastern European countries also have masculine cultures. And these masculine cultures, they align quite well with, well, let's say, the characteristics of classical loyalty programs, which are about achievement, getting goals and tiers and so on. So there's a very nice connection between them. Well, if we look at the Netherlands and if we look at Sweden and Denmark, they have what they call more feminine cultures. Cultures that are more about, let's say, equality, dialogue, modesty, reciprocity, and those kinds of things. Well, that culture doesn't align that well on paper with the culture with the characteristics of those reward programs with status and so on. So, presumably, because it's an assumption, people are from the Netherlands, when asked in a questionnaire about are you influenced and enthusiastic about these things, might be inclined to answer a little more skeptical. Although I know from a fact that the Dutch people in practice love discounts and points and so on. So there's a discrepancy on that. Yep. So that's the second point. Last point has to do with e-commerce. The Netherlands is the second, is number 2 in Europe when it comes to e-commerce penetration. So we buy like almost everything online, except, well, I don't know, a loaf of bread or something well, those kinds of things. And what has happened is that people bought a lot of things online. The shopping streets are becoming emptier and emptier. A lot of famous Dutch classical retailers disappeared. They went bankrupt. Yeah. And with their disappearance, a lot of classical programs also disappeared from the market. People moved to online. And although you see point schemes and tiers also at web shops and e-commerce sites, they're not as dominant as they are in classical retail. So that could also be a possible explanation why people are less confronted with these kinds of programs. So, well, there are a lot of other things to think about, but I think a combination of these 3 factors might be an explanation for that.
Yeah, I think it is a really interesting piece of analysis, and you'll see it in the Dutch market snapshot in the white paper. We saw a similar pattern in the Danish market, the home of our conference, which is a disaster. Do those things translate for your market?
I think most of them do, yes. So I was a bit surprised to see the numbers as well, because I think I forgot to mention actually. So I work for a software company, and a lot of the big loyalty programs in Denmark are indeed using our marketing automation tool. So I have fairly good insights into how they're working, and they boast quite a lot of members. And indeed, the penetration rate is quite big. Most Danes are a member of one or more loyalty programs, but yet they claim that it has the least impact. I mean, it's one of the countries where consumers claim that it has the least impact on how they actually choosing which brands to trust with their time and money. So I was quite surprised to see that, and I had to sort of speculate as well. I came up with some of the same findings as you did, Rick. Brilliant thing about adding the wealth index
the GDP.
to it.
I was impressed. It's basically we received a 10-page document, I think last night from Rick, comparing these spreadsheets. It was very impressive coming up with this kind of comparison.
But I had myself speculate, why is this the case then, that people join the programs, but they say that it doesn't affect their loyalty? And I think, I mean, when people are generally wealthy or have some kind of purchase power, and you give them money, you essentially, or give them discounts, you give them points, or this whole transactional loyalty, which has also been a topic of the day, you generally are giving them something that they don't need. Yeah. And I had this confirmed by a local Danish study on loyalty programs that was done last year, where they were examining, so what is sort of the core of the loyalty programs that are in Denmark. And unlike Matas, which is doing extremely well, most loyalty programs are really simple earn and burn transactional exchanges where there's no focus on the emotional loyalty. Whereas, and this is what the study concluded, what consumers are after from the brands that they like, Danish consumers at least, it's more about feeling acknowledged and heard and seen and engaged, and not so much about getting informed by discounts. Everybody likes that. Even wealthy people will like spending less, but it's not something that will have a tremendous impact on how they feel about the brands and ultimately select one brand over the other. So with that twist, I think it's pretty much the same.
Ever-increasing consumer expectations, but also ambitions for relationship with the brand.
Really, the emotional loyalty thing has been, I think, somewhat neglected by the Danish retailers. It's too simple, and whether they're not ambitious enough as a sort of a general rule, or whether they're not imaginative enough, or whether the customer databases are too small, or whether their technology is too simple, could also be a case why they're failing to sort of.
We saw a very different picture in the Hungarian market. You'll see that kind of sits more in the middle of the research. What sort of stood out for you? What was the most interesting insight for you in the research, and why?
You said like 43% of consumers think that every brand should have a loyalty program. That was one of the numbers that we saw earlier today too on the slide. And I, in a way, very much like to see that. In another way, I was thinking, oh, these sophisticated customers, I'm sure that they can like kind of feel if a company should have a loyalty program or they shouldn't have a loyalty program, because not all companies should have a loyalty program. But it showed like a general sentiment, a big statement, like 43% agrees that every company should have a loyalty program, and it's very strong. It reminded me to a Gartner research, which said that 1 out of 3 companies without a loyalty program today will have a loyalty program by 2027. And it's kind of similar number, right? Similar what is the customers are expecting, and similar what Gartner predicts. And I like dive deep into my thinking and thought about the numbers that we've produced in the Global Customer Loyalty Report, and thank you for referring to that. Our quote is just next to Rory Sutherland's, so we are in such a great company. And in that, we learned that it's like a lot of competition. Like you here sitting in this room are competing with each other to the attention of the customers, right? Because our attention is limited as customers. And then you are competing with each other. And I think it's nice to acknowledge that and then just, to get your things together, because it's a lot of competition. The number that I was referring to is that 9 out of 10 companies with a loyalty program would like to revamp their strategy, would like to meaningfully change their strategy in the next 2 years. It's a lot of movement. There is a lot of competition. And I think it's like just a wonderful time to be alive in this profession of customer loyalty. And I'm very happy to that, we are in this space, running a tech company in this space.
It's nice to see that mirror between the company's ambitions for loyalty, but also the consumer's desire and ambition for them. It's brilliant. It's right back to the theme of the conference that we started on when we were talking about what should this year's theme be about, loyalty getting so intelligent and getting smarter and smarter. And it's obviously a lot to be done in your market, so you need to get busy. Final sort of question, I think, although we might get one in from the audience. Nick, you obviously have the unique position of sitting across all the research and also working with us on the British research. What sort of stood out for you as the most interesting trends that sort of came across the whole report?
Yes, I mean, I'm an industry outsider, so I guess I'm coming at this from a slightly different perspective. That there were 2 things that really stood out for me, and in many ways they actually build on what you've all been saying. Those 2 things being, firstly, the proliferation of consumers that say that loyalty makes them feel more emotionally connected to a brand, but also, as we've seen in the white paper and from the case studies and the market deep dives, is that there's a real rise of gamification, which I think you mentioned, and the use of technology. And at first glance, they seem like disparate entities, but actually they're not. This is what brands do for us, right? They provide something functional. You buy the product, they give you a service, but we buy from brand A instead of brand B because we have an emotional connection, or we feel we have an emotional connection to brand A instead of brand B. We agree with their voice of brand in the market, or we buy into their ESG. And I think as marketers it's probably worth remembering that even when we're talking about loyalty or really any kind of marketing, we've always got to address those two entities, those two sides of the coins, the functional side of the coin, but also the emotional, more human side of the coin.
Nice. It's a very loyalty answer from a researcher. Does anyone have any questions about any specifics in the research? Yes? Are you going to link it to insulation again? Yes. Excellent.
You mentioned there's a bit of data there. So it was 43% of customers believe there should be a loyalty program. I suppose it raised the question that 57% of people are potentially saying no to something that is ultimately free value. That's quite alarming in some ways. So in that lens, what do you as a panel think of that? Thank you. What do you think as a panel loyalty needs to double down on to really unlock appetite and engagement and imagination in the next 2-3 years?
It needs fun. Fun is key to answer your question, I think. Though I think that specific number was that 43% said that every single company should have a loyalty program. And I think like customers or consumers were reasonably thinking like not every single one of them should have. But to answer this, I think loyalty programs need more fun. And even though the points I think are definitely here to say, tiers are definitely here to stay, transactional loyalty programs too, the differentiator between loyalty programs is the emotional side. And this is what I translated now to fun, what you just mentioned, the emotional side. Because even though it's 2024 and loyalty programs have been around for a while, and yes, like earn and burn is like a known and tested framework, it is still valid in 2023, in 2024. The cost of living crisis that we experienced, like last year, British media was full of this. And the true differentiator can be this emotional loyalty element. And I think people will see this.
Yeah, and I think there are many ways that you can create this emotional loyalty. So first of all, how you conceptualize your loyalty program. I think when people are asked, they are answering in terms of what they normally see with loyalty programs. And I think in the current state that most loyalty programs are and what they choose to offer, people would, it's like, meh, maybe I do, maybe I don't. But in the current form, no thanks. I'm not sure I even want it. Because I can get a discount, but I can always get a discount. So it's more looking into how you conceptualize your loyalty program, both on the earn and burn side of things, where you make it possible to earn points or earn rewards or get benefits by doing something or experiencing something or having an engagement that is on brand. And the same holds true for the burn side of things. And then don't forget that all these loyalty programs are also there for the sake of creating the data, as you mentioned, from the physical retailers, creating a lot of data that will give you some insights to how you can treat each person individually and personalize your offerings towards them that will indeed make them feel heard and engaged. And if you can also entertain them while doing so and make it fun and engaging, I think then you're moving on to something where you could genuinely create some real emotional loyalty.
Yeah, and I think maybe to add to that, if you want to create emotional connection, you cannot create emotional connection with transactional rewards. They're very relevant, don't get me wrong, but if you look at the loyalty program case I saw early this morning about Red Bull, obviously we cannot be all Red Bull, but it was a typical example of how you can create such a feeling, so much emotional connection and a sense of community without actually providing rational rewards. It's all based actually on content and preferential treatment and engagement and stuff. And those are the programs that have on the long term the most yield the most emotional connections. On the other hand, everyone has to have a KPI for next quarter and getting the results and getting the sales and stuff. So we're dependent on the rational rewards as well. But on the long term, experiential rewards create the most emotional
One of the programs that I highlighted was in fact not a sort of a traditional loyalty program per se, but it's the FC Copenhagen, which is our local football club. It was a part of Champions League playoffs here. I think we beat Manchester United. on our home turf.
Brilliant.
It's a great day at the stadium.
Are we allowed one more question? No. Oh,
But they're
in
all
which
about
case,
emotion. That was the point.
in which case, thank you. All that's left, I'm not allowed. I've just got the nod here from the man with the camera. So sorry, Lindsay, you'll have to grab us afterwards. Please come and ask us questions. We're here today. Rasmus isn't here tomorrow, so if you have any particular questions about the Danish market or personalisation, grab him today. But I think Zsuzsa and Rick and Nick, oh no, Nick's only here today as well, so grab him for any questions about the data. But the three of us will be here tomorrow as well. And thank you very much. I hope you find it really useful. Thank you.